An idiot. You did that and there's a laser. I'm like, who's doing it? That's really good aim. It must be coming at you from
Alright, everybody, we're going to go and get started. Why do you laugh at me? Why is it so funny about
laughing
that?
with you. See, you're smiling and laughing. I'm laughing with you.
You have a dysfunctional relationship.
You need to flick the light switch.
Alright, welcome everybody. I hope you're here for the Laravel meetup because that's what you're about to witness.
Hi, I'm Tom Rideout, PFY on the IRC channel there, and Real Rideout on Twitter.
And I'm Eric Van Johnson. I'm Showcom on Twitter. Good.
You do this. This is Zito.
Oh, okay. See, you won't even say their name. So we have a couple upcoming meetups. For those of you that know, SDPHP is the San Diego PHP user group and our sister group. They have a downtown meetup. They're moving their meetups to Tuesday because, you know, things are just too consistent with Wednesday, so we moved it to Tuesday. So now, SDPHP will be meeting up on the second Tuesday of every month, and we will continue to meet up on the fourth Wednesday of every month. Next meetup is downtown. It's talking about doctrine for app agility. And a new member will be doing that presentation. Tom, not this Tom. A funnier Tom. Thanks for looking.
And then the next meetup after this one is going to be next month on the 27th. And Matt has graciously offered to do a discussion about the Laravel unit test helper. We'll also have another presentation, but we're not sure what that's going to be yet. Does anyone here do big data? So we might hit you up for that next
Are you
month.
interested in talking about big data?
That's not what I asked. Okay. So we'll update the webpage at sdlug.com and meetup page to let you guys know what's going to be coming up next month.
If you're ever interested in doing a meetup but have trouble coming up with the topic, we have a Trello board out there. Tons of topics on there, suggestions. If you have a suggestion of something you'd like to hear talked about, that's where you go to add it.
If you want to vote on something that you want to hear about or add a topic that's not on the board that you want to have presented, go ahead and feel free to add a topic, vote things up. That's how we get new ideas for presentations.
Communication?
Our meetup page is meetup.com, meetup.sdlug.com. Our Slack page, well, you do the Slack thing.
Okay, so we've gotten Slack going. Got a lot of people starting to log into it. The way Slack works is if you don't have an account, you first have to get an account. You do that by going to slack.sdphp.org. Put in your email address, automatically approves you and sends you an approval link. Then you go log in at sdphp.slack.com, and you're in there. We got channels for Laravel. We have a channel that's actually a bridge into our IRC channel, so you can be in Slack and talk to the people in IRC.
IRC is, of course, the preferred way to communicate.
Not officially the preferred way.
Unofficially the preferred way to communicate. We're on Freenode.
He's decided. That's the problem. We also are on Twitter, San Diego Laravel. We'll post meetups and Laravel links there.
Freenode.net.
And we have a website as well, sdlug.com. Jesus, that was way too much time for that slide. Okay, discount codes. I sent out an email, I think to this group after the last meetup. Taylor, I reached out to Taylor, asked him if there would be discount codes for user groups. He graciously said, sure, here. And gave us a fairly hefty discount code. It's like 40-something% off. It's a real good discount code. If you're planning on going to Laracon US, definitely use it. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Also,
A number of people will be going to the, a number of people here will be going to the Laracon meetup this year. Eric.
You going, Marcus? Marcus? There you go.
That number is 2, 3. Nice.
There you go, 3.
I went to it
We'll
last
get
year.
together.
It's a fantastic event.
Yeah, we could.
For the code, I actually bought tickets and I emailed Taylor.
The discount? Cool. Very nice. Cool. I'm glad you got that. Also coming up is PHP Tech, which will be in St. Louis this year for the first time.
When's that at?
It is May 23rd through the 27th. They also have a discount code, not as generous as Laracon, but it's there.
What's the discount code?
It's right there.
I can't read that.
This little thing there.
Read that for me.
So I'll send all this in an email. Again, I'll also attach it to the comments of this meetup in case anybody needs it. Don't think you have to write all that down.
News. Like I said, Matt has graciously offered to do a Laravel unit testing helper presentation. This is a tool that's just been released within the last 3 or 4 days. It's a Chrome extension that you use to click on forms, click through your website, generate quick example test cases for your unit testing. Really cool tool, really glad to have it. It's a Chrome native plugin.
It lives in the inspector, if anybody's worked with that.
Yep. In unrelated news that's not Laravel specific, the mcrypt library has been approved to be deprecated. I'm not sure if you heard about that.
Sure.
So, one of the big changes you'll see in PHP 7.1 is mcrypt being phased out. Besides that, not a whole lot of news in PHP community this month.
I got a whole another slide of it.
What's the replacement?
Open SSH crypt.
Open SSH crypt. Alright, fine. Also, with the no more news, GitHub relaxes API limits. That's big for us because if you've ever run Composer and you were asked to go to GitHub and get an auth token and put it in, that was because of rate limits with GitHub. That shouldn't happen anymore, which is pretty cool. Braintree support has been added to Laravel Cashier, which in turn means it will be added to Laravel Spark. Braintree is just a PayPal gateway, so you can take PayPal payments.
And information today was that Braintree is 100% integrated into Spark now.
Yeah.
That came out on Twitter today. So.
Cool. Laravel internals have moved to GitHub, so any of you Slack guys out there who might have been in the Laravel Slack, internals used to have its own channel there. All the conversation used to go on there. They're still going to keep that, and general conversations will happen there, but actual pull requests and discussions around code are moving over to GitHub. And Katana was released. Katana is kind of cool if you're familiar with I think it's called Sculpin, the other static HTML generator. Hey, Darryl, welcome. Katana, it will generate static websites based on some markdown you do. The cool thing about Katana, though, is it uses blade templating. So if you're familiar with that, if you're Laravel, you're familiar with that. This looks like a cool tool. I might actually use this on a side project that I'm working on. Oh, you can do the tricks.
As part of our, I don't know this one. I told you that when you were writing it.
It's very simple. Okay, so tips and tricks. We've been going through Code Rabbi's presentation of 50 tricks in 50 minutes.
Once a month.
Well, 2 a month, but yes. This one we're talking about conditional relationships. We all know models and relationships have, this like belongs to blah blah blah. One of the little tricks that a lot of people don't know is you can throw conditions onto that. So in this scenario, it belongs to my category model, where user ID is the authenticated user. So it's just an additional condition. Pretty straightforward. You know this one?
Just a little trick about the expressive where syntax. You'll see a lot of different ways of using the where method in I'm not sure what you say, expressive, eloquent. This is the standard example. You say where make equals Honda, but you can also omit the second argument and simply say where make Honda. That will assume an equals.
And this is the coolest one.
There's the less common black box version, which is where make Honda. Make fills out the first argument through magic methods. Honda taking the third argument, and the second argument being an equals by default.
Very cool.
I endorse.
Do you endorse that?
I endorse 1 and 2. I don't endorse number 3.
Why not?
Black box magic methods.
I just like I just like how compact it looks. But
You like pretty, I like functional.
it's true. Laravel resources. There are several out there. I haven't had theirs yet.
Wait, what?
We got a whole slide, so don't worry about it.
We dominated the presentation. Right?
We have a couple podcasts out there. If you're into podcasts, there's the Laravel podcast, Laravel News, Laravel Snippets, a few blogs out there. By the way, anybody new here, you don't have to write any of this stuff down. It's if you go to intro.stlug.com, that's where all these slides are. So all these Twitter handles are important people in the Laravel community.
What's this?
Shameless self-promotion.
For what?
Go ahead.
Eric and I have started recording our podcast, not Laravel specific, just specific to me and him and our experience with PHP and working from home and drinking and having children and all those wonderful things that we have in common.
So we're out there.
As of today, we're available on iTunes and SoundCloud, and it'd be awesome if you guys wanted to check us out. It's very non-technical. It goes. Yeah, no, it goes off the road really quickly. So it's fun. If you like the dialogue that we have up here already, then it's just a lot more of that.
I'm so happy.
If you don't like this, it's better.
Is it better?
I'm trying to get people to listen.
Because we edit.
Yeah, no.
We edit the boring stuff out. No, we don't actually.
We edit the dead air.
Yeah.
The boring stuff is still sparkled throughout.
All right. We do want to thank our sponsors. CARI.net is where you're at. They provide the facility, the stream, the food, great people. Dev is John and my company. We do the website, the beer, all that other stuff. So thank us, thank them.
Podcasting supplies.
Couple housekeeping tips. Facilities are out the door to your right, and they're on the right-hand side. Be respectful. Please clean up after yourself. All that other stuff. We're all adults. We should know that.
Restrooms are in the same direction.
Yeah, that's what I said. Facilities. That's
Yeah,
what.
restrooms are right on the way to facilities.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break while Darryl gets set up. Right, Darryl, you going first?
Yep.
Oh, there you are. I was like, Jesus, where'd he go? Darryl, you left!
He's hiding behind it.
So we'll let Darryl get set up. If you want to do a bio break or grab some pizza and beer, feel free. And we'll get Darryl set up. What's that? Free. Do you want the quick? Are you on the Laravel Wi-Fi? Laravel user group? Yeah. And then the password is, yeah. So this just work. You can cancel it out of that. It just recognizes it. Give it a second to come up here. Sorry. Source file. It's underneath. cancel that. Alright. Click it, make sure. Oh man, you lost the uppercase C. Holy
Yeah,
crap!
you know, pretty soon. I still have the O. I still have signature authority.
You want to click it and see if it works? There we go. Okay, cool. No, you want to go left, right, not up, down.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Got it.
Cool.
Yeah, I think a couple people walked out. Let's give them a minute. Well, I'm not technically in charge of anything. I'm not. I often question my technical abilities, but I still have signature authority. So I'm still an officer. I still sign the checks.
So I can capital C.
Alright.
We get started?
Yeah, go get started. We're going to start with Darryl's presentation on Laravel and Sanitization.
So my name is Darryl Rettig. I'm a CTO of a startup called Donation Match. I'm on, I guess, technically on Twitter, but I never tweet. So I wanted to do talk on Laravel sanitation. It's something that I don't know. It keeps me up at night sometimes. Is sanitation. I'm going to talk first. Sanitize all input. The whole reason I wanted to talk about this, when I started with Laravel, I came from Drupal CMS, where a lot of sanitation was kind of taken care of as far as safety. But when I started Laravel, I remember probably a month into it, I was on a very popular Laravel site, and somebody had posted a post saying to the person who created this Laravel site, why aren't you sanitizing your input? And had a pop-up come up that they injected some a script, a JavaScript script into a post. And I was like, oh yeah, I need to do that too. Because there's really nothing that I found straight out of the box that just kind of takes care of that for you. So anyway, this is always in the back of my mind. I don't think I'm an expert at it, but I think that it's important that if you're going to do an application, that you at very least think about this and put it into your standard process. So are there any questions? Marcus, you're up. No, I'm kidding. Why sanitize? Well, I use that. I use it for two things: I'm calling normalize input and also cleanse input. To normalize input, I can do entry corrections. I can trim fields. Maybe I'm formatting dates. Maybe the front end is taking a telephone number. It's nicely formatted. Maybe I store it as formatted. Maybe they don't. Maybe it's coming in as unformatted, and I want to store it as formatted. I use my sanitize step to do all those kind of corrections to the data. I also will check for default values because checkboxes can kind of cause problems without giving you any input. If I have null values that I want to fill in, and also the front end may not align with your model. A lot of times front ends change a lot quicker than your database back end, but designer late in the process or in a production application say, hey, I want to change how this looks. I want different controls, and you get totally different types of input, and it might be a checkbox. And you might convert it to a code. You might just say, well, if the customer is of this type and they do this action, set these 3 columns. So I like to have a sanitize step to do that. Second thing is to cleanse input. Primarily script injection, but also to kick out any undesirable HTML tags. If you're taking HTML tags as input because you're building a nice looking page that the user has some control over, you can't trust your front end to only send you certain HTML tags because that's code running on the customer's computer or user's computer, and they can change it anytime they want by either disabling JavaScript or, they're probably smarter than I am. So this is really the most important thing as far as keeping your site safe from injected JavaScript. So what I think is important, and I'm going to go over how I did it, and I know this is a crazy, this is a mess here, but when the thing I was talking about that Laravel site that had a problem, I kind of investigated, well, how am I going to handle cleansing my site? And I came across a post where Laravel had a sanitize method in the request object or request class, but was taken out at some point. There were a couple of entries on this commit where it was taken out on some alternatives. So I implemented one of those alternatives. The second, and this is really this part, the sanitize method on the request class, really just gives me a place to put the code. I like consistency. It's not. I've worked in corporate IT a lot, and I've had a lot of consultants working for me, and consistency is really important when it comes to support. So doing things in a very consistent manner, even if and sometimes it's not the optimal way of doing it, but consistency from a support standpoint is good for your customer, which is often, if you're in corporate IT, they're more concerned about cost than maybe the most efficient way or the fastest way or the slickest, coolest way of doing things. Another thing I add, so I use the sanitize method in the request class as a place to put my sanitation code, and then I use a service called Purifier to do the cleansing. And here's some information on this particular service provider. And all you have to do is do a require, and you get that. It's pretty easy to implement. I'm going to go over, whoops, let me just do this. Another option, Graham Campbell has a Laravel B input service provider. I haven't used it. I don't know much about it. I'm sure there's other other service providers out there to help you do cleansing of your input. But anyway, what I did is on my kind of my base request class, and again, this is from that GitHub post that I mentioned before. Just adds really a couple of functions that get called automatically for in a request. I pretty consistently use anytime I'm taking input from a user. Almost every controller function I have, I use a request class on it, because that gives me authentication, it gives me validation, it gives me sanitation, it gives me so I almost exclusively use request classes instead of trying to put a bunch of code in the controller directly. But anyway, this is just a straight copy and paste from that post. I know it's not formatted quite right, but I just wanted it to fit on the slide. The links are will be on this presentation. I'm sure this will get posted up somewhere if anybody wants to use this. But basically, it's going to call a sanitize function if it exists, and run that in your request class, and it gets run before the validation happens. When you install Purifier, the other thing is to install Purifier, and it has a relatively simple config. I use the default config, which just has some exceptions of allowing certain HTML tags. Other than that, I just took the defaults. I didn't spend a lot of time trying to figure out what all the different settings are. There's a whole library there's a whole bunch of settings for it that I believe these settings are really for this package. So, kind of to put it all together, when you create your own request, is that all you have to do is bring the purifier into your constructor and do your little assignment here, and then put your sanitize method. You could whatever. Like the first thing I was talking about was the sanitation of bringing in default values. You can do a merge into this, which will put the items into your request. And then the purifier is just this one. I pretty much put this in every sanitize step. Is just copy this, which purifies, does a clean on on all the input. So this will strip out any scripts that don't, or any HTML tags that don't fall in, that are not allowed. And then you just return this all, and then the request goes on to the validation step. So I wanted to do a quick little demo, because sometimes and I'm just going to demo what how easy it is to screw it up, because this just happens to be a request. This is one of my request classes. I can go in here. If I go in here to edit, and I can just, you can tell I've done this before. So if somebody just, puts in a little alert here, I'm just going to refresh it because it's cached. And, you don't want your users to see stuff like this. I mean, that's bad. And it's pretty easy if all you had to do is just type it in. And now I have JavaScript running on my machine. I'm a privileged user, let's say. I'm an admin, and it can probably start doing all kinds of nasty things that you wouldn't want to have happen. So that's real nice. So anyway, this is not a very long presentation. I just wanted to kind of make everybody think about sanitation. If you're not doing that every time, you cannot trust any input you get. And even if you're behind paywall, it doesn't matter. You will. And people could do it accidentally. They copy and paste. I take HTML input from my users. They can copy and paste it from their site and pick up a script that's running on their site.
Yeah. So with Purifier, can I strip JavaScript but keep HTML?
Yes. Yeah. And that was the. You can do that in the config. The default is it keeps safe tags. And you can configure it to exclude other tags, and I believe, and also you can exclude. And I'm sorry, I really didn't hear the question. Is can you keep some tags and like strip JavaScript but leave the other tags? And yes, you can. By default, that's what it does. It generally keeps safe tags in. Are there any other questions on this? So anyway, I'm just going to go back to here. I can do an update just to show that it works. And now, all I did is hit save again with that script in there. It just stripped it out, and it's not there anymore. And I don't have the pop-ups anymore. So like I said, this helps me sleep at night. I know that I'm not an expert on this type of stuff, so it's kind of nice to have these packages that help take care of that. I imagine you can even just take this service provider and put it in the middleware and have it do it on every request and strip everything. This is probably a little more granular, so you can turn it on and off if you want it on particular requests. But right now, I do it on every request, and I just keep the defaults, and I haven't had any problems with users that can do HTML, having HTML kicked out that wasn't supposed to. Yeah.
So it's using the request facade or setting your controllers?
Yes, I use the request object. The question is, am I using the request class in my controllers? Yeah, as a standard, every request, unless it's super simple and I need no validation or no anything, and I'm just taking it at face value. But generally, every controller function, I use a request class.
And in the code you showed earlier, the abstract request class, that's is that your own request class?
Yeah, it's. Let me go back to the. Oh, I can. Whoops. Yeah, this is the request class, base request class that you get out. If you look at requests, there is this request class that is like your generic request class, your base request class that comes when you create a Laravel app. So I just modified. So I just modified that request class and basically added these two functions, and I think it changed a modification to the validator, because I think this factory is what calls the different steps in the class.
Have you done any comparison before and after with
No, the question was, have I done any penetration tests? Not beyond the basic thing that I kind of demonstrated, just to see if it works. But no, I haven't done any testing beyond that, at least for this or using Purifier. No, I haven't.
I know, like, they give you this, like, Acunetics is one.
But excuse, what's one of the big ones?
Acunetics.
Acunetics. Okay.
And they give you like a 30-day trial, and you sort of like fully functional. And it's nice because it does do all kinds of injection attempts that you don't have to worry about creating on your own. It just
Okay.
throws all kinds of stuff in your login page or tries to get into your internal pages. It's a good sort of baseline way to see like what's my baseline of vulnerability.
Okay. That's called Acunetics.
So yeah.
Acunetics. So yeah, check it out.
Yeah, I've run a number of different things against Purifier before, and it's about as robust as it gets.
Okay, good, good. Whew.
And it's well maintained, which is nice.
Okay. So yeah, good endorsement for Purifier. It was more like this was one of the things that actually kind of disappointed me with that. This is not like one of the first things that is talked about in with Laravel. They talk about and how everything else is so easy and lots of work on validation, and not on this, which is I don't know. I think there's a gap there. I wish there was a little bit more on it.
Yeah, there's actually a sort of a verse scenario that a lot of people overlook that I completely overlooked until very recently, which is user data that you're not saving, but you're sending a form as a get. So what happens is if you're sending a form as a get, you can copy and paste that and put it in an email and send that to someone. And then the data that is corrupt or bad is never even stored on your system. They only ever run it locally. It's only ever posted locally. So the big example is if you have a search box on your site and you do a search for puppies, well, the first thing it'll say on the next page is you're searching for puppies, and then it'll give you a result set. And because everyone wants a search result to be copy and pasteable, then your form is set as a get request. So if it said you're searching for puppies, alert, you've been hacked, then I can take that whole URL string, copy, paste it into an email, and start sending that out to people who are registered members of your website, and do injections that way. So just because you're not saving data doesn't mean it doesn't have to be sanitized. All data, even if you're not saving it, should be sanitized.
Yep.
I've also seen a lot of the junior engineers, they'll learn how to do validation on the front end, and they'll think, well, I'm doing it on the front end, so why do I have to do it in both places? And they don't realize 6 months later that the company's using the API directly from some other app that has no validation.
Yeah, and even if
It helps for responsiveness, but that's about it.
yeah, you have to. You should be doing it twice.
Yeah.
You have whatever you should assume your front end's never going to do any validation. You should trust it. Yeah.
With the front end frameworks today, it's so easy to add basic validation.
Yeah, but you just can't trust it. You just can't trust it. Yeah, I mean, you should do it. It's good for the user to not have to wait for a round trip. User schmoozers. But yeah, and I really don't probably think too hard about on the get side also, but generally I'm still going through the request class and I just have my one function and the clean all.
Yeah, it really does have to be anything that the user poses it. Because that type of attack is so insidious.
Yeah, and it's embarrassing. And you can, and just because I got it on the input, maybe I'm not displaying it. I don't even know that this has occurred, but now I've sent it to a downstream API, a downstream customer that is not even something that I display, and then now they're getting it because they may trust me.
And there is liability. There's
Yeah.
liability.
And there's really clever people out there that spend a lot of time doing this type of stuff just for the hell of it. So, any other questions?
Thank you. Right in the middle. Gonna talk fast. No, listen to the left as fast as you can.
Here's the document.
Yes, stand.
Okay, well,
Marcus. I'm going to be talking about validation in Laravel specifically. So, validation, we're just talking about sanitation. We have to make sure we're stripping out all of those horrible script tags and making sure everything that's coming into our application is clean. We also want to make sure it's valid. In our example here, or my example here, I'm going to be using a blog, right? So it's like the most stereotypical example, but this blog is going to have a post, and each post will have a title and some content, right? So we want to make sure we're validating the stuff coming in, because if somebody tries to create a post and it has no title, and then down the line we try to display that title and there's no title, then we get errors, and our users are like, what the heck's going on, right? So it makes sense to validate data, right? Let's start off with controller validation. That's the easiest, right? That's where everybody starts, I think. Oh god. It's like huge. This is the basic controller that gets added to your, in your app HTTP controllers section when you create a new Laravel application. So when you create new controllers, you're probably going to extend this controller here. The most important part of the part that I'm going to be talking about right now is the validates request trait, which is used right here. So when you create your new controllers, you automatically grab that validates request trait. We're going to be using that. Remember that. Here's a post controller. Is that like really, did I make these too large? It's like, okay. For me, it's like, oh, I can't really control that. Sorry. Too late. Gray slides next time. Only gray on black. Gray on black. That's next. All right. What are we talking about here? This guy. The next big part that you have to remember when we're validating data is the Illuminate HTTP request class. That's going to extend the Symfony HTTP request class, add some helpers, add some more functions around it, and you get some all around Laravel goodness, right? So, let's say up here somewhere we have a create method, and it displays a form, and it has a title, some content, and a submit button. And our user just sees the form and says, it doesn't fill out anything, and they just hit submit. We're going to pop it to our store method here. We send a post request to store. We're going to type in that request, this guy, and we're going to pass it to our validate method. That validate method came from that validates request trait that we talked about 2 slides ago. Kind of give it some rules here, so we're going to pass it in there. The second parameter, thank you, is a rules array. So in our case, we did title, it's required. It has to be unique on the post table. And then we also have a body that's required. If we get past that, we're good to go. We could store it, we could send out an email to our users, hey, I created a new post, follow me on Twitter, whatever you want to do, right? But let's dive into this validate method first, because our user in this example just hit the submit button. They didn't fill out anything. It's going to pop into this method here. Again, we pass in the request, we pass in the rules. We're going to talk about messages after. I'm not too sure about that. I don't use it much, or I've never used it, so we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to keep it right here. We're going to talk about this, this, and this. If anybody else knows about that, let's talk at the end. We're going to create a validator, pass in our request, pass in our rules. That's going to do some magic, and we're going to call a function here that will check all of our rules. If it fails, we're going to throw a validation exception. That guy's going to build a validation response, which will determine if it's a web request or a AJAX request. It'll send a JSON response to it. A web request, it'll send a regular web request back, right? With that, you'll get it'll return the input that they sent, along with the errors that they had, right? So we hop back here. This failed. We're never going to get to this part because this failed. So this is actually going to kick them back to our form. So now let's look at that form. One more slide first, apparently. This is a snippet that you've probably seen in the documentation and in other Laravel snippets. It's kind of generic. It just kind of counts to see if there, or it checks to see if there's arrays in the session and dumps them all out. that array, or I'm sorry, that error variable there is provided, or is an instance of the message bag, which is provided by the share errors middleware, something or other. I don't know, it's in the web stack. You can pretty much drop this in and on any page or in your layout, your default template, and then it'll just kind of spit out any errors that you might have, right? You could also get specific, so you can check to see if the errors has one for title, spit that out. Maybe you want to add a class around, in the input you want to say like alert this class because it's not right, make it red, and then spit out the actual error, right? So this is our form. Basic bootstrap, awesome. This is going to be that list of errors, right? So we say, we tell them, hey, you submitted nothing, so we can't have a post without a title and a post needs content, right? By default, you're going to get a generic title field is required, content field is required. I think I called that body earlier. I made these slides over like a few days, so it all jumps around. Don't worry about it. The concepts are there. So that third array that you could pass into the validate method was messages. You could start to overwrite messages here, like this guy. I overwrote that to say some craziness, right? This is more in line with what I was doing. We set some rules. We added some rules just because. In this messages array, we say title is required, and we say, hey, you need a title because I'm a post and I need a title. When you call that validate method, it will go back and display that there, right? Form request validation. Some people hate this. I think, no? Do you have any opinion on this?
Never actually.
I was expecting that.
I've always felt it was pointless.
I love it.
I enjoy it. Yeah. I like the form.
I hate it.
Request validation.
Now I hate it.
Now you hate it.
Yeah. Went from didn't like,
But didn't care.
didn't care. He says he likes it, and now you hate it.
Don't like it.
Is this in the podcast?
It will be now.
What podcast is that?
PHP ugly. Because it was so damn good.
All right, so form request validate. Any questions so far? I've kind of been like moving. I ramble a lot. Everybody good?
I was going to mention you could also specify a function for certain attributes, a custom function.
Right. So you could pass in a function to say, is this? Yeah, you could see. Right. Yes, that is true. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, you can pass in a callback in your rules to kind of do some stuff there and say yes or no. True or false?
Like
Right.
you have to do some regex test and then test the result of that, just some logic.
Right. Completely forgot to add that here.
That would be nice to see.
Yeah. I have failed you. I have failed you all. I'll be back next month to talk about callbacks in your rules array.
No, you need a second talk.
All right.
Volunteer.
No, I'm not doing a whole talk on callbacks.
I heard you volunteer.
Oh,
You are recorded saying you will do it.
crap. I'm going to be busy. All right, so PHP artisan make request, post request will generate this guy. Well, not this guy. It'll give you some blank template that you can kind of do stuff with, right? You also get an authorize method right at the top. By default, this will say return false. You could do a little bit of authorization here. So you could say, hey, is this user an admin? Yes, keep on going. If not, kick them back, right? If you're doing authorization logic elsewhere, you could just return true here and go from there. We wrap our rules array in a function along with our messages. And now, hey, look at that. In our post controller, we could just type hit our post request, and if we actually enter the function, we're good to go. This will magically validate here, which is why Thomas doesn't like it, because you go here and then all of a sudden it does some magic and then it kicks you back, or maybe not, right?
I mean, what's cool, like Marcus is pointing out here, if it fails, it never enters the function. The data that's being passed just doesn't never enter the function. So I think I like that concept.
Me too.
It's basically the class that I have to sanitize function to.
Right. So you were sanitizing before you validated, right? So you sanitize everything, validate it.
Yeah, that runs before validation. I don't know if it runs before polymers. I just don't know.
Just a question, or thinking out loud. If in my body, in my content, that was weird. If in my content somebody just said dropped in like a script tag, so the validation would run and erase, so it would strip it all out,
And it would pass it to validate.
and the validate would.
Your rules would run after sanitize.
That makes
So you'd be
sense.
sanitizing. You'd be
Sanitize.
rules would be running on sanitized data.
Right. So validation would actually try to validate nothing because it stripped it down.
Correct. So you would
So we do that. Okay, makes sense. I also like this form request object because let's just say you're going to be updating something later. You probably have the same or similar rules. You can, instead of having a store method that has a validate these rules and a update method that has validate these rules, you could kind of put it in one place there. You can always just do that on the model, and we'll end up doing that later, but it kind of puts it in one place. It's kind of, yep.
Like if I have a RESTful API and I've got a store method that's going to store a post, and then I can have a method like where again I can update a post. In that case, title wouldn't be required. And over there, I guess what I'm saying is like I guess when I do rules based on the method, is there a metric for that?
Yeah, we're gonna actually talk about that in a few more slides.
But where you say post request, that could be blog requests or a blog post. It doesn't. Post request doesn't mean anything.
It's not the HTTP per post.
No, it means it's what means.
Oh, yeah, that's confusing. Sorry, yeah.
It's because Laravel is doing reflection to figure out what class you want, right?
No, I am sending a post request to /posts. Is that
Don't call it post request. Don't call
okay?
it post request.
I want to step away.
I usually call mine store request. I'll say store, like if it's post, I'll say store post request is what I would call it.
Right. But what
So-
if I
so-
two different routes?
I think it's
Two different post routes.
Yeah.
That different validations.
Yeah.
I can't call them both post requests.
No, put blog post request in front of this, or put user request.
correct.
You're right.
You can do two different requests, or if they're similar enough, there's only some changes. You can say, like if it's a store or update.
So it's Laravel reflection using figuring out what it wants. It wants a post request.
No.
This is a name.
Yeah. So, that was a
Correct.
this is
Call it nerf.
this is a horrible example. Crap.
It's dependency injection, right?
So this guy here, this post request is I'm creating a blog post. So I could say if I was creating a user, I would say user request, and then this guy would be user request. This would be user request, not
Right.
right.
You're not actually passing anything into store because it's being done by the router, which is being done by reflection right now.
One more time.
Are you physically passing anything into store in the routes, or is it being done because of reflection?
Reflection. Yeah. This is all happening.
Never told me I was wrong.
Hold on, I'm gonna rewrite all my slides. Are we okay? Does that make sense? I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Everybody good?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, let's continue. Validating arrays, asterisk 5.2.
This is the one with the asterisks, not the previous one. That we just called it.
This is from, oh no. I was going through these slides earlier. I took Matt Stauffer's kind of example that he gave on his blog, and then I made it worse. I wrote this all out, and then I came back and looked at it earlier today, and I was like, what the hell was I doing? Makes no sense. Let's just say we're going to be creating new employees, and for some reason, we need to create 3 at a time. I don't know why. That was the example I came up with last night. We're going to pass this guy into the validate method, and let's just say the fields are employee 1 name, employee 1 title, 2, 3 down the line, right? We can pass this guy in, put an asterisk there, and say each name is required to be a string and each title is a string. We can validate all at once. If that fails, it'll pass back to the form with the input, so we can drop that back in there and just say, hey, that failed. That's required. And there's a way to customize what that looks like, because that looks terrible. That looks nicer. I've never done this before. Apparently that's possible. Available rules. There's a ton. That's important. So is that. So is that. So is that. Generally speaking, man, you would use all of them for something, right? Of course, you can create your own rules, though. This is a crazy example that I found on Twitter from Snipe. Realized I have no idea what her real name is, but she has a project that is called Snipe IT, and it's pretty large.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Allison.
Allison.
She's here in San Diego.
I know.
She refuses to come to this our meetup because of. Is that yeah. I'm blaming. I hope she hears this. We miss her. We wish she would come to our meetup.
Well,
Repeat the question.
what?
Repeat the statement.
Oh yeah, Snipe. Allison. Allison, come to our meetup. That was what we, as a group, collectively decided.
Yeah. See, we need to tweet this now. Everybody needs to tweet her and say, hey, come present for us.
Yeah, well, somebody posted that she was moving to San Diego a while back, and then I was like, okay, cool, and then she just never showed up. So now if she ever shows up, she's gonna be like, hey, crap, shouldn't have said that.
We blame Spencer. Don't worry.
I've seen her tweeting about one meetup and it didn't go well.
It wasn't ours though. She's never been to ours.
I was looking forward to meeting her as well. All positive. All. The bike's not picking it up. It's fine.
We don't like that guy.
All right. She dropped this into a gist because she was going to be. She had a field where you could enter a bunch of emails that are separated by commas. She needed to check to make sure all of those emails were actually emails, and this is what she created to do that. She extends the validator, separates everything, makes an array, and then checks it. This is going to be kind of using this example back here, right, where you kind of pass in something. Again, I've never done this before, so good on her for doing it, right? This is going to be using that as an example. Then you check those rules that you just created. If it passes, return true. If not, return false. Now you're able to use this in your normal rules array.
Why does she have those?
Oh, sorry, this isn't a service provider. Yeah, service provider. Should have mentioned that from the get-go, but I didn't. Changing the rules. All right, this is going to be an example that we were just talking about. For my example, this is when I ran across this. This is in a form request object. I'm creating a project at work where I work at a school, so we gather highlights. So some of them are general highlights, like, hey, this student did this cool thing. That's awesome. Some of them are internship highlights, where this student did a cool thing at this internship, and here's their supervisor, and some other information, right? I have an array here where this is the create rule. So if we're creating a new, we're going to call it a highlight. If we're creating a new highlight, the type is required, general, internship, whatever else. This section here, the site, is required if the type is internship, and we have to make sure that that site exists on the internship table, on the internship sites table. The general rules are the dates required, a summary is required, and then some other stuff down here. I do add other stuff if, you know, the type is this, but for simplicity, I didn't do that here, right? So we're saying if this is a post request, so if we're creating an object here, we're going to merge in the create rules with the rules and then return that. If it's not, if it's an update or a patch or a put, then we just return this regular, hey, this is already set, so we just need to modify this stuff. Does that make sense?
Addressing this question earlier, right?
Right. Cool. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. Automatic model validation. Using Code Rabbi's tips and tricks that we were just talking about earlier. I don't know, this was early on in the presentation, so we might have talked about this a few months ago. I'm not sure.
Sure it's not Coder Abbey.
Oh, very sure.
Yeah, it's Code Rabbi.
Oh, yes.
Oh, he's definitely a yeah,
What's his last name?
I can't pronounce it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I've seen him before, but I thought Yitzhak?
yeah. No, he's definitely a rabbi.
He's great. He's a great guy.
Yeah, and he
Yeah.
gave a speech about that in Laravel last year about how why he went to medical school and why he went into programming after medical school.
Yeah, it was a really good presentation. That guy is really tall. Just side note. Anyways, this was his example. If you set up your boot method here, this guy is like basically a model event. So if you're saving it or creating or updating, you could validate it, and if this fails, you have some logic here. If that fails, it'll kick out, never save. So that was just one of his quick tips, right? You can actually do more with Arden. How do you pronounce that? Is that right? Arden? Okay, cool. I am completely convinced that I got the chickenpox during the vowels section of elementary school, because I'm terrible. Like, I looked at that and I was just like, Ardent, and it's actually Arden. Just a side note. I feel like I needed to acknowledge that. This is the package. You can pull it in. Now, instead of extending the Eloquent model, you extend the Ardent model. I'm so self-conscious saying that.
Perfectly.
Thank you. Thank you. Self-confidence. All right. Set auto-validate to true. Then you put your rules into the actual model. That's kind of nice, because now the model knows what its rules are for validating itself, right? Over in our store method, rip out that old post request, pass in a regular request, say new post, title content. If you can't save it, then you know that something happened, because that save method will validate behind the scenes, and if it can't save, you just send it back. I noticed now that you're going to lose input there. Maybe not. Maybe it doesn't behind the scenes. I don't know. Never used this package before. If you get past this part, success, hey, tell your users that you create a new log post, right? This is, yeah, similar. This is, okay, so now we're doing it in a post request. I had a reason for doing this. I don't know why I did this. And I ran through this talk earlier today, and I was like, got to this slide, I was like, why did I do this? And then later I was like, oh, that's why I did this. So maybe we'll figure it out in just a moment. Yes. We'll find out, I hope. So we have a post request. It's back. We have an authorize, we just return true because our authorization is handled elsewhere in the application. Post rules. We get the rules from the post there and return them. That could be one line. And now, oh hey, that's why I did it. Because if you actually enter if you actually make it past the post request, then you know that you could just call save and you don't have to do that ugly if statement over here. Right? Because it's already over there.
It fires the rules, right?
Right.
Yeah. Store your rules.
That was a good idea. Hey, clean up your controller a little bit. You can even get even crazier. Thomas is gonna love this.
Like crazy.
Yep. Auto hydrate your entity from input. True. Passing the fillable object or parameters. And now you just pass it in, say new post, and save it. And it's done. Black magic. How's it work? Who knows?
Wait, go back to that for a second.
Yeah.
So this is your model on the left?
Yes.
Where
So
where's the post request happening?
sorry.
The post request, where's that?
This is this guy.
What guy?
This is an actual post request. So a form request object. Right.
From before. Oh, okay.
Right. So this is again the form request object.
So these are just your dependencies. It's all setting up and then letting our take care of everything for you.
Yeah. So if you're doing something really, really simple, that scares me. That's too much.
This is why you don't use black box stuff.
So, question: should legibility and post request not just post?
Wait, what?
You're passing post request in on the right.
From the prior page. Right, from the prior
Yeah. So that's this guy.
New post. Never mind. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's the model.
Got it. New post.
You have to remember that everything is in a container, which is your application. So when he says new post here, and this post here still has access to the request because it's within the same container. So when he says auto hide, what it's doing is it's saying when this model is instantiated, grab the request object from where I know it to be. If the fields in the request object match fields that I have defined, then populate those fields. And then when he says save, it saves whatever it found in the request.
How does it have access to the request?
Because it's all in the container.
It's
What container? You're not the IOC container that is Laravel.
No, it doesn't.
Yes. Everything that is running, everything that exists in your application is running in the app container of Laravel itself. So everything can access everything else, even if you don't pass it in, because IOC can resolve anywhere in the system.
So you're saying art is accessing the request?
Yes.
right. Yes.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, it's
Oh,
gonna.
yeah, that's a little too magic.
Yeah. This one scared me. I was like reading the documentation. I got to this. I was like, that's nuts.
Which is why I draw the line on black magic to method names.
So do you,
No, I'm totally cool with. I'm cool with that example way back there, though.
earlier you
This
said
is too
you like
much.
this, but you don't like this.
No, this I don't like, this he likes.
No, I like the form post
For-
request.
yeah.
This
I'm in that same boat. I'm cool with form requests. This is kind of weird. I don't like this.
He liked it when you said where make, and then
I like it when you don't put things words in my mouth. That's what I like.
It's also helpful for you that validation is actually running twice.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause
So
you're creating
what's
a model
happening
twice.
when you have
Yep.
a post request that gets instantiated,
Ah.
that gets called, it grabs the rules from the model itself, it runs through validation for that to see if that even enters into the content of the control rule.
So it runs for post control first,
Yeah.
and then
Then
And then once you're inside though, it runs the rules on the model itself. Because what could have happened is the data could change between when the input is passed in. And then right though, if you say post title is equal to food, it no longer meets the requirements for the minimum length, right? So at that point, it then runs validation again on the actual model. So validation is happening twice, once for the request and once for the model.
it's true.
That sounds
is
good.
that only because it's extending, post is extending
let me repeat that for the stream.
Well, I just
What William was saying, we need to mic you up so.
the model validations. I use model validation rules for feeding the requirements of the database schema. Right. So if I have
So model validation.
I have varchar 100, then the model should restrict people from inserting 101 characters. Right? But on the form that the user is submitting, I want to limit it to 20 characters.
Okay.
So make sure
Yeah, well, we could assume it is.
Okay, so
But you
So-
can return with it. Yes.
So, okay.
so that was just being.
But you have to do a return anyway. You have to do a return.
Roski to show.
I have another question, but
Ask again for it.
no, we're gonna move on.
Go down.
We're moving on. Anyways. Okay.
Clear as mud now.
Clear as mud. Testing. This is just, again, the little.
Slow down.
I
Yeah.
love this thing. This thing is so amazing.
Yeah.
I used it. That was awesome.
I used it just for this, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. So this is kind of like our form there. You could kind of check to see if your validation is working via an integration test by submitting a blank form and using this tool to catch all that for you.
You know the coolest thing about this plugin is? It's a little Laravel logo with your toolbar.
The logo is pretty cool. Not gonna lie, I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Anyways, that's kind of nice. Just plugging that again. This guy. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that because, again, vowels. Any questions? I have no idea what I'm talking about. I hope that was informative.
That was great.
We had a whole discussion there. I feel like we all learned something. We're all better people now. Thank you, everybody.
I don't know if we got to show it, but that fourth argument,
Oh, yeah.
custom attributes.
Yeah. What is that?